The smell was always the worst part. It clung to everything, thick and heavy, sinking into the walls, the floors, even the air itself. That putrid, sticky stench of death. A rancid blend of decay, bleach, and something darker, something sickly sweet. The metallic bite of dried blood mixed with the artificial sting of disinfectant. A cruel attempt to mask the horrors embedded in the wood and carpet fibers. You'd think after years as a forensic cleaner I'd be used to it. But I wasn't. Some places felt wrong, no matter how many crime scenes I walked into. No matter how much blood I'd scrubbed from walls, from tile, from the crevices of broken furniture. This house felt worse. I stood at the threshold, staring inside. A family of 4 had lived here, past tense. Now, it was nothing but a rotting crime scene, an empty husk filled with blood and silence. The police had taken the bodies, but the stains always remained. I adjusted my gloves, pulled my mask tighter, and stepped inside. The front door groaned on its hinges, the sound cutting through the dead silence. The air inside was thick, humid, suffocating. The walls pulsed with moisture, like they were sweating, exhaling something foul. I took my first cautious steps, the floorboards creaking beneath my boots, sticky with what I hoped was just congealed bleach. The living room was a battlefield. Dark stains soaked into the carpet, their edges curled and blackened like something had been burned into the fibers. The couch had been overturned, cushions ripped, stuffing hanging out like exposed intestines. The coffee table was split in 2, the jagged wood glistening red at the edges. I stepped carefully, my gloved fingers brushing the wall. The paint was chipped, splintered. Something had been dragged here. The kitchen was worse. The dining table was still set, plates frozen in time. One of the chairs had been knocked over. Another was still tucked neatly under the table, untouched. Plates of half-eaten food sat rotting, covered in a thin layer of mold. A fork lay abandoned, its prongs streaked with something dark, something dried. They had been eating, laughing, existing, and then something came in and tore them apart. I forced the thought away, tightening my grip on my supplies. Bleach, scrub, wipe, repeat. The job was simple, really, just clean, just erase. But as I moved through the house, a deep unease settled in my bones. Because this place wasn't just a crime scene, it was something else, something wrong. And as I stepped deeper into the hallway, I swore I heard something move, something inside the walls. The baseboard was riddled with them, tiny tunnels, too round to be termite damage. They looked carved, deliberate. The silence stretched, pressing in, thick and suffocating. And then, a clicking sound, faint, rhythmic. It came from inside the wall. I stepped closer, my breath shallow, my fingers trembling as I reached for my flashlight. The hole was too deep, a tunnel that stretched into nothing. I leaned in, angling the light. And then, something blinked, a wet, glassy black eye staring right at me. I jerked back, knocking over my bucket. The sound was too loud. Water sloshed onto the blood-stained carpet. The clicking multiplied, not one sound, but dozens, hundreds. The walls shifted. Something moved inside them. I froze, heart pounding. The tunnels weren't empty, and whatever was inside knew I was here. I forced myself to breathe. I was imagining it. Had to be. The clicking sounds were just old pipes. The tunnels were just termite damage. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I picked up my bucket, careful to avoid the holes as I scrubbed at the dark, sticky stains embedded in the carpet fibers. The bleach stung my nose, its acrid bite almost welcome. Almost. But as I moved through the house, the holes multiplied. I found them in the bathroom tiles. Small, round, like they had been bored into the ceramic from within. In the pantry walls, hidden behind shelves filled with rotting food, behind the headboard of the master bedroom, more of them. Chewed out, tunnels disappearing into blackness. Some of them dripped with something, not water, not oil, something thick, black, sticky. I reached out with gloved fingers, hesitating. The substance had a smell, a sweet, rotten stench. My stomach turned. The bleach in my bucket suddenly felt useless. The clicking never stopped. It followed me from room to room, shifting from one wall to the next, sometimes faint, sometimes right behind me. At one point, I swore I heard scratching, something digging, moving. It was closer, hungrier. I froze in the hallway, gripping the mop handle like a weapon. The air hummed with unease. The house was breathing. And then, a hole in the wall expanded. The wood splintered, cracked. A long, slimy finger pushed through, followed by another and another. Too many. Writhing, curling, reaching for me. I stumbled back, knocking over the bucket, the water spilling across the floor. The fingers twitched, recoiling from the liquid, and then they were gone. The hole shrank. The house fell silent, but the clicking returned, louder, faster, closer. I didn't realize I was trembling until I saw my own hands shaking. I wasn't imagining this. Something was inside these walls, something that didn't want me here, something that was waiting, watching, starving. I pulled out my phone and called Detective Holloway. The line rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. Holloway. I swallowed hard, still staring at the holes in the wall. I think you missed something. There was a pause. Who is this? I tightened my grip on the phone. It's the cleaner, the one sent to the house. A sigh. A long, heavy sigh. Listen, kid, I don't know what you think you found, but this case is closed. Closed. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You're telling me this case is closed? I turned, scanning the room. The clicking sound had stopped, but I knew it was still there, watching, waiting. Then tell me, Detective, why the hell are there holes in the walls? Holes? Holloway repeated, his tone shifting slightly. Yeah, holes, tunnels. Too round to be termite damage, too deep to be cracks, and they're everywhere. I ran a shaky hand through my hair. There's something in this house. A pause. A longer one this time. Then, you need to get out of there. My blood ran cold. What guy? The husband. His voice was firm, like it was supposed to be obvious. We found him in the woods not far from the house. He killed his family, then offed himself. I hesitated, my fingers tightening around the phone. Then what the hell is inside these walls? Silence. For a moment, I thought he had hung up. Then I heard a faint exhale on the other end of the line. Listen to me. His voice was low now, almost a whisper. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't want to know. But you need to drop your shit and walk out of that house. Now. I turned, glancing toward the front door. It felt farther than before. You're not telling me something. Because it doesn't matter. You're not a cop. You're not supposed to be asking questions. The walls creaked behind me. Something shifted. I backed up, pressing my free hand against the wall. The paint was cold, damp. Something moved inside it. Get out of the house. Holloway's voice was sharp now, urgent. Get out and don't look back. And if you're smart, don't come asking any more questions. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Tell me what you know, Holloway. I know that house has had more dead bodies in it than the official records show. I know we've sent people in there before, and not all of them came back. And I know that whatever's in those walls, it sure as hell isn't human. My breath caught in my throat. A soft clicking sound echoed through the hallway. Closer now. Too close. "I need to go," I whispered. Holloway exhaled sharply. "You should have never gone in." The line went dead. I didn't listen. I should have. Instead, I kept cleaning. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe I just didn't want to believe what I'd already felt crawling under my skin. But I kept going, scrubbing at stains that wouldn't come out, stepping around holes that felt like open eyes. And that's when I found the journal, tucked beneath the master bed, hidden between the mattress and the floorboards. The cover was worn, the pages stiff with dried blood. I flipped through it, my fingers trembling. The husband had written it. The early entries were normal. Notes about work, grocery lists, a vacation they had planned. Then the handwriting changed. The letters became jagged, uneven, desperate. There's something inside the house. It watches from the holes. It whispers to the kids at night. They're always hungry. I hear them moving when the lights go out. God help me. I think they live under the floor. My blood ran cold. A scratching noise came from the vents. I looked up. The metal rattled. Then, from inside the ductwork, a child's giggle. I found it in the laundry room. A rusted metal door, bolted shut, nails driven into the wood like a desperate attempt to keep something inside, or maybe to keep something from getting out. The police report never mentioned a basement. I crouched down, running my fingertips over the corroded metal. The bolts were old, rusted, but the nails hammered into the wood were newer. Someone had tried to seal this shut recently. I should have left it alone. But I didn't. I placed my ear to the metal, listening. Nothing. Just silence. Then the floorboards behind me creaked. I spun around. Nothing, but the clicking was everywhere. The walls shuddered. I gripped my flashlight, scanning the dimly lit room. The light flickered as if the batteries were dying, or as if something was draining them. The bolted door called to me, an unshakable weight settling in my chest. I had to know. I reached for my multi-tool, hands trembling as I worked the nails loose, one by one. The AIR grew heavy. The moment the last nail came free, a low, almost hungry groan echoed from below. I hesitated. Then slowly, I lifted the door. A staircase led into darkness. The stench hit me immediately. Damp earth, rot, something foul, something old. A gust of cold air rose from below, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay. I swallowed hard, shining my flashlight downward. The beam died. My gut tightened. Then, from the abyss, a rush of movement, shuffling, cloven footsteps, and then, a child's voice barely above a whisper. "We're still hungry." The clicking erupted all around me, now deafening like thousands of tiny teeth gnashing against wood. The walls pulsed. Something was coming. I slammed the trapdoor shut, shoving my weight against it just as something slammed from below. A high-pitched screech echoed through the room, shaking the walls. I scrambled to grab the nails, but the wood was warping, swelling, bulging outward. They were pushing through. I ran. As I burst into the hallway, the lights flickered violently, casting stretched, twisted shadows along the walls. I knew one thing for certain now. This house was never empty. I ripped the nails out. The trapdoor creaked open, revealing a yawning black void beneath me. A foul wave of air rushed up, thick and rancid, like something had been rotting down there for years. I coughed, my stomach churning at the overwhelming stench of damp earth and decay. Then it moved. A mass of writhing things stirred in the darkness. At first it looked like shifting shadows, a trick of the light. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw them. Bone-white limbs, thin as twigs, clawing at the dirt walls. Their teeth clicked in unison, a grotesque choir of chattering hunger. I shined my flashlight into the pit, and the beam caught something worse. The walls. They weren't made of stone or soil. They were woven together with bones. Some were ancient, brittle, others fresh and glistening. Skulls peered out from between twisted ribs, hollow eye sockets gleaming in the dim light. The tunnels stretched deeper than they should have, branching off like a network of veins disappearing into the abyss. And then the clicking grew louder. From the darkness, figures emerged. Not human. Their skin was translucent, stretched too tight over bones too sharp, too long. Their mouths gapped open, jawbones split apart like broken hinges. Their eyes, black, empty, starving. And then from behind them, something bigger stirred. I felt it before I saw it. A deep, guttural rumble, vibrating through the air like a distant earthquake. The creatures stopped, heads tilting in unison, as if waiting. And then I saw it, the shadow in the darkness. It was huge, impossible, its limbs coiling, unfolding, filling the space. A mouth, too many teeth, too many jaws. It had been sleeping, waiting, feeding in the darkness for centuries. The hunger beneath had awakened, and it had seen me. The thing lurched forward, a mass of limbs and bone, its skull-like face split wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth, wet with something thick and black. It didn't walk. It slithered, dragging itself forward with arms too long, fingers tipped with razored claws. It wasn't just feeding, it was collecting. The clicking reached a crescendo, echoing through the cavern. More of them emerged from the tunnels, thin bodies twisting unnaturally, crawling along the ceiling, the walls. They were starving, and they had seen me. I turned and bolted. Scrambling up the ladder, I felt something claw at my ankle. I kicked, once, twice. A high-pitched screech filled the air, a sound that wasn't meant for human ears. I pulled myself up, reaching for the trapdoor, only to see it closing. Something was pushing it shut from above. "No, no, no, no!" I screamed, slamming my shoulder against it. For a moment I thought I saw hands pressing against the wood. Small, childlike hands. But their fingers were wrong, too long, too sharp. The clicking grew deafening. The thing below was still coming. I forced the door open with one last heave, throwing myself onto the floor above. The moment I was through, I kicked the door shut. The clicking stopped. I lay there panting. The house was silent, like it had been before, like it was waiting. I never told anyone what I saw. Would they believe me? A week later, I checked the property records. The house had been sold again. A new family moved in. A father, a mother, 2 children, just like before. I tried to warn them. I called, left messages. No one answered. Then one night, my phone rang. A child's voice whispering through the static. They live beneath us. They don't want us to leave. They're so hungry. The line went dead. My blood ran cold. The next day, I drove back to the house. I parked down the street, watching from a distance. The windows were dark. The driveway was empty, no signs of life. I stepped closer, the air thick with unease. Something felt wrong. The front door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, heart hammering in my chest. The house was empty, no furniture, no personal belongings, like no one had ever lived there. Just like the first night I walked in, only one thing had changed. The trapdoor was open again. A draft rushed up from below, carrying with it the stench of rot and earth, and from the blackness beneath, the clicking had started once more. The hunger beneath had not been satisfied, and it never would be. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Click the bell icon so you never miss any new content. Stay tuned for more creepy stories coming soon. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the dark, subscribe for more. Because the best horror isn't what you hear, it's what follows when the story is over.